June 18, 1967, Monterey Pop Festival. Backstage, 2 hours before Jimi Hendrix was scheduled to perform, a nervous television producer approached him with a clipboard and a worried expression. "Jimmy, we need to talk about your performance tonight. ABC is filming this for a television special. Millions of Americans are going to see this. Your American debut." Jimmy nodded, tuning his white Fender Stratocaster. "I've heard about your shows in London," the producer continued. "The wild stage antics, playing guitar with your teeth, behind your back, all that stuff. Look, it's fine for nightclubs, but this is television, American television. Families are going to watch this. Can you just play it straight tonight? No crazy stuff, just good music, okay?" Jimmy looked up from his guitar, smiled slightly. "Sure, man, no problem." The producer seemed relieved. "Great, thank you. We're counting on you to represent rock music professionally." 3 hours later, Jimi Hendrix set his guitar on fire in front of 7,000 people and a national television audience. And when reporters asked him backstage why he'd done it after being specifically told not to, Jimmy looked at them and said 5 words that became rock and roll legend: "I had to do it." This is the story of the most rebellious, revolutionary, and unforgettable performance in rock history. The night Jimi Hendrix announced to America that he wasn't going to play by anyone's rules, not even on national television. The Monterey International Pop Festival was supposed to change everything. June 16 to 18, 1967. The first major commercial American rock festival, organized by John Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas and record producer Lou Adler. The goal was to showcase the best music in the world and prove that rock and roll could be artistic, serious, culturally important. The lineup was incredible. The Who, Janis Joplin, Otis Redding, The Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, and Jimi Hendrix, fresh from his conquest of Britain, making his American debut. For most of these artists, Monterey was a big deal, but for Jimmy, it was everything. He'd left America 9 months earlier as an unknown guitarist who couldn't get a record deal. He was returning as Britain's biggest rock sensation. This was his chance to prove to his own country that they'd been wrong to reject him. But there was a problem. American audiences had no idea who Jimi Hendrix was. British music magazines had been writing about him for months, but American teenagers hadn't heard Hey Joe or Purple Haze yet. His album, Are You Experienced, wouldn't be released in the United States until August. To most of the Monterey crowd, Jimmy was just some guy from England they'd never heard of. The festival organizers were counting on the ABC television broadcast to introduce Jimmy to America. The entire festival would be filmed and turned into a television special. Monterey Pop would air on ABC and reach millions of American households. It was the perfect platform for Jimmy to become a star in his home country, which is exactly why the television producers were nervous. They'd heard stories about Jimmy's London performances, the wild stage presence, the sexual guitar playing, the outrageous showmanship. That stuff might fly in London's underground clubs, but American television in 1967 had standards. The producers needed Jimmy to be impressive but not controversial, talented but not shocking, revolutionary but not obscene.
2 days before the festival, the production team had a meeting about Jimmy's performance. "We need to talk to him," one producer said. "Make sure he understands this is national television. We can't have anything too crazy." "He's a professional," Lou Adler said. "He'll be fine." "Have you seen what he does on stage in London?" another producer asked. "He humps his amplifier. He plays guitar with his teeth. It's too much for American TV." "Then someone needs to talk to him," the first producer said. "Make it clear, no crazy stuff." So, on June 18th, 2 hours before showtime, that conversation happened. The television producer found Jimmy backstage and delivered the message: "Keep it professional. This is television. Millions of families watching. Just good, clean rock and roll. No crazy stuff. Jimi said, "Okay, no problem." But here's what the producers didn't understand. Jimi Hendrix didn't do anything halfway. He couldn't. His entire approach to guitar, to music, to performance was about breaking boundaries and pushing limits. Asking Jimi to play it straight was like asking him not to be Jimi Hendrix. The performance was scheduled for Sunday evening, the festival's final night. Jimi would go on right after The Who, which was a problem in itself. The Who were famous for their destructive stage show. Pete Townsend smashing guitars, Keith Moon kicking over drum kits. They were going to be hard to follow. The Who performed at 9 p.m. Their set was explosive, loud, aggressive, chaotic. And at the end, as always, they destroyed their instruments. Townsend smashed his guitar to pieces, Moon kicked over his drums, smoke bombs exploded. The crowd went absolutely insane. Backstage, Jimi watched The Who's destruction and realized he had a problem. He was supposed to go on after that. How do you follow complete chaos? "They're destroying their instruments," Jimi said to his manager, Chaz Chandler. "What am I supposed to do after that?" "You'll figure something out. You always do." Jimi thought about it. The Who had smashed their instruments. That was their thing. Jimi couldn't just copy them. He needed to do something different, something more, something that would make people forget The Who's destruction and remember only him. And then it hit him. Fire. "Chaz," Jimi said, "do you have any lighter fluid?" Chandler looked at him. "Why?" "Just trust me. Do you have any?" Chandler found some lighter fluid. Jimi tucked it into his jacket pocket. Then he picked up his white Fender Stratocaster and walked toward the stage. The television producer who'd told him to play it straight saw Jimi heading to the stage and felt relieved. The kid had listened. No crazy stuff, just good music. Everything would be fine. Everything was not fine.
Jimi Hendrix took the stage at 10:30 p.m. on June 18, 1967. He was wearing a bright orange ruffled shirt, a feather boa, and white pants. His hair was a massive afro. He looked like nothing American audiences had ever seen. The crowd of 7,000 people wasn't sure what to make of him. This was the British guitarist they'd been hearing about? He looked more like a peacock than a rock star. Then Jimi started playing. The opening notes of Killing Floor filled the arena, and within seconds the entire crowd understood. This wasn't just good guitar playing. This was otherworldly. Jimi's fingers moved across the fretboard like they were having a conversation with God. Sounds came out of his guitar that didn't exist in nature. The crowd started screaming. Jimi played for 45 minutes. Foxy Lady, Like a Rolling Stone, Rock Me Baby. With each song, the crowd got louder, more frenzied. This wasn't just a performance, it was a religious experience. The television cameras captured everything. Jimi playing guitar behind his back, playing with his teeth, playing with his guitar between his legs in ways that made the camera operators uncomfortable. This was exactly the kind of stuff the producers had asked him not to do. But it was also undeniably brilliant. Even the nervous producers watching from the control booth had to admit this was the most exciting thing they'd ever seen on stage. Then came the final song, Wild Thing. Jimi started playing the familiar opening riff. The crowd recognized it immediately and started singing along. But something felt different about this performance. There was an energy building. Something was about to happen. Jimi got down on his knees in front of his amplifier, started playing his guitar pressed against the speakers, creating feedback that screamed and howled. The sound was primal, almost violent. The crowd was losing their minds. Then Jimi did something nobody expected. He stood up, turned to his guitar tech, and mouthed the words, "lighter fluid." The guitar tech, who'd been told about the plan, handed Jimi the can of lighter fluid. The television cameras caught all of it. Producers in the control booth started yelling, "What is he doing? What is he doing?" But it was too late. Jimi Hendrix set his guitar on fire. Flames erupted from the Stratocaster, real flames. The crowd gasped, then screamed. Nobody had ever seen anything like this. The Who had smashed their instruments, but Jimi was burning his as a sacrifice, as art. Jimi held the flaming guitar above his head like an offering to the gods. Then he smashed it on the stage, again and again, sending pieces flying. Strings snapped, the neck broke, the body shattered, all while the guitar was on fire. The television cameras kept rolling. The producers had wanted to cut away, but this was too incredible, too historic. This was the moment rock and roll became something more than entertainment. It became ritual, performance art, revolution.
When the flames finally died and the guitar lay in pieces on the stage, Jimi walked off calmly, like he'd just played a normal set, like setting guitars on fire was something he did every Sunday evening. The crowd was in complete shock. 7,000 people sitting in absolute silence, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Then, slowly, the applause started, building and building until it became a roar, a standing ovation that lasted 10 minutes. Backstage, chaos. Festival organizers didn't know whether to be thrilled or horrified. The television producers were having a meltdown. He set a guitar on fire, on camera. We told him no crazy stuff. Lou Adler, the festival producer, was laughing. That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. That was reckless, one TV producer shouted. That was dangerous. What if someone had been hurt? But nobody was hurt, Adler said. And you just filmed the most important moment in rock and roll history. Reporters swarmed Jimi backstage. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Why did you do it? We heard the producers specifically told you not to do anything crazy. Why did you set your guitar on fire? Jimi looked at them with that slight smile. I had to do it. 5 words, that was all he said. I had to do it. But why, the reporters pressed. You were told not to. You could have played it safe. Why risk it? Because playing it safe isn't playing, Jimi said. The guitar wanted to be sacrificed. The music demanded it. I had to do it. The television special, Monterey Pop, aired on ABC later that year, and despite all the producers' concerns, Jimi's performance was the highlight, the moment everyone talked about. The image of Jimi with his flaming guitar became iconic. It was on magazine covers, posters, album art. It defined not just Jimi's career, but an entire era of rock and roll. But here's the thing. Jimi didn't set his guitar on fire for shock value. He did it because that's what the performance demanded. Following the Who's destruction, playing a normal set would have been forgettable. Jimi understood that sometimes art requires sacrifice. Sometimes you have to burn something beautiful to create something eternal. The producers who'd told him to play it straight came to understand this eventually. One of them, interviewed years later, admitted, "We were wrong. We were thinking about television ratings and not offending sponsors. Jimi was thinking about art, about making a statement that would last forever. He was right. We were wrong." That white Fender Stratocaster that Jimi sacrificed at Monterey became the most famous guitar in rock history. Pieces of it were later collected and displayed in museums. The image of Jimi setting it on fire has been reproduced millions of times. It's the defining image of 1960s rock rebellion. And it almost didn't happen. If Jimi had listened to the producers and played it straight, that moment would have been lost. There would be no iconic image, no legendary performance, just another good guitar player doing another good set. But Jimi didn't play it straight, because he couldn't. Because I had to do it wasn't just an explanation, it was the truth. When you're an artist working at Jimi's level, you don't make choices, the art makes them for you. Your job is to be brave enough to follow where it leads, even when someone's telling you not to. The lesson of Monterey isn't about rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's about understanding that sometimes the rules are wrong. Sometimes the people telling you to play it safe are protecting themselves, not your art. Sometimes you have to burn something beautiful to create something eternal.
The Jimi Hendrix told, "Don't be crazy" on television, he set his guitar on fire and became a legend. And when asked why, he gave the only answer that mattered: "I had to do it." Because real artists don't ask for permission. They don't play it safe. They burn their guitars and create moments that live forever. If this story of artistic rebellion and refusing to compromise inspired you, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who's being told to play it safe when they should be setting their guitar on fire. Have you ever done something crazy that everyone told you not to do? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to hit that notification bell for more stories about the artists who changed the world by refusing to follow the rules.